Now, WSAV News 3 presents 2022, the Year in Review. Here's Edward Moody.
Happy New Year and welcome to this special presentation, the WSAV Year in Review. As we close out 2022, with only about 2 hours left on the clock, we're going to take a look back at those stories that made headlines right here in Savannah and the Lowcountry. Well, many of those stories making national headlines this year as well. From politics, the most watched Senate race in the country landing on our front doorstep, to high-powered crime cases involving one of the most powerful families in the southern United States. Growth in the coastal empire and Lowcountry breaking records for development and investment. And because we live just miles from the active Atlantic Ocean, there is always weather to talk about. We begin with the most locally impactful news of 2022 and what will continue to make headlines for years to come. 4 local counties coming together with the state to purchase and then pitch the largest economic development project in Georgia history.
It is my great honor to officially announce that Hyundai Motor Group will build their first dedicated electric vehicle manufacturing plant right here in this good soil in Bryan County. Congratulations.
Hyundai digging in, breaking ground on thousands of acres to build the Korean company's first electric vehicle plant right here in the coastal empire. Work behind the scenes by 4 counties, Bryan, Bullock, Chatham, and Effingham, secured the car maker's commitment to the area right off Interstate 16. Once complete, the plant will employ more than 8,000 people, most of them coming from our area. What there is not a lot of, materials to make the cars or the batteries. So, with the announcement of Hyundai came the announcement of more manufacturing, built to support what is being called the Meta plant. One such business, which makes the power packs for the cars, will locate just south of Richmond Hill off I-95. Because of the enormous development in the area, Bryan County has been tapped as the fastest growing county in the state and the 6th fastest in the entire country. Economic development, part of Georgia Governor Brian Kemp's promise to bring more industry to the Peach State. In South Carolina, Governor Henry McMaster talking about the same during an active political year. But before voters cast their ballots in 2022, an overhaul of the Georgia voting system with the creation of a statewide election oversight committee. Now, that group given the power to step into county election systems if there were questions about that county's election integrity. The election overhaul also changing the absentee ballot system and early voting days. But the overhaul might not be done yet as we look to 2023 and 2024 election cycles. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger saying it's time for the Peach State to get rid of its runoff system. He says it puts undue strain on election staff, creating a greater chance for error. Well, the most impactful political issue coming from the United States Supreme Court in 2022, sending a ripple throughout the country, causing protests nationwide, including here in Savannah. The overturning of Roe v. Wade eliminated the federal protections for abortion, leaving the decision up to individual states. Both sides of the argument vocal about the decision. Pro-choice supporters in Savannah expressing their disappointment. Hundreds of protesters gathered in Johnson Square, telling News 3 they feel the move is a step backwards for women and that this decision should worry women of future generations. Meanwhile, anti-abortion activists also vocal, celebrating the decision and supporting Governor Kemp's heartbeat bill, which outlaws abortion at the first sign of a fetal heartbeat. Well, during this election year, all eyes were on Georgia. The historic U.S. Senate runoff between incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker was supposed to decide the balance of power in the Senate. While it didn't come to that, in the end, the race was still critical. And WSAV had the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to show Georgians, the nation, and the world the 2 candidates and where they stood on the issues. At the helm, our very own Tina Tai Shaw. As one of the 2 moderators, she commanded the debate stage by wrangling the 2 candidates. But what viewers saw on October 14th was only the tip of the iceberg. As we end 2022, we wanted to share the story behind the story of the great Georgia debate.
Who do you trust in Washington?
When the sun rose in Savannah on October 14th, the center of attention was this stage and the 2 men waiting to stand on it. a hotly contested election debate between Baptist preacher and the first black senator to represent the state of Georgia, Democrat Raphael Warnock, and businessman and Heisman Trophy winner, Republican Herschel Walker. The debate was watched by everyone, and I mean everyone.
Two candidates with two different visions for your future.
The election on November 8th would set the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. Just like every other station in the nation, WSAV was locked in on providing the best coverage we could give voters. But imagine the thrill when we got the word that not only would we be covering it, but WSAV of Nexstar Media Group would be the host station for the great debate.
Live from Plant Riverside District in Savannah, this is the Georgia U.S. Senate debate.
It wasn't just about putting on a broadcast. There were lots of bases to cover. It started with weekly Zoom meetings where debate organizers meticulously talked about the issues that mattered to Georgia voters. We talked about the questions that I would ask. Those Zoom calls led to this: the stage preparations, lighting, set design, and deciding which candidate would stand where. But a star-studded debate can't go on without the moderators looking like stars themselves. Our wardrobes chosen by consultants. When all was said and done, a fuchsia dress won for me, and I helped select the perfect tie for my co-moderator, Buck Lanford. Even my hairstylist, Shannon Stafford, and makeup artist, Verando Marshall, were brought in for a 3-hour-long consultation with Christy Schreiber.
Just show a little bit more. That just needs to be a little bit more, it just needs to be shorter.
Okay, so you want to basically kind of almost line it up with this side, because once we go shorter, you're actually going to lose the hairstyle.
5 days away from the debate, it was time for rehearsal. No stone was left unturned, and every script was written based on extensive research. The hours were grueling, but worth every minute. On debate night, we were ready. The candidates came armed with their best speeches and sharp jabs.
There are only two people who are going to sit in this seat, either me or my opponent. And I think this race is about who's ready to represent the people of Georgia, and I'm thinking about them every single day.
But if he cut from the same cloth at 96% of the time, I'm running he and Joe Biden because they're the same.
Then there was the infamous flashing of the badge.
One thing I have not done, I've never pretended to be a police officer, and I've never threatened a shootout with the police.
Well, and now I have to respond to that.
We are moving on,
I
gentlemen.
have to respond to that. And you know what's so funny? I am with many police officers, and at the same time,
Mr. Walker, Mr. Walker, excuse me, Mr. Walker.
When
please,
he said a problem
out of
with
respect,
the truth is
I need
here.
to let you know, Mr.
Yes.
Walker, you are very well
Yes.
aware of the rules tonight.
Yes.
And you have a prop.
Yes.
That is not allowed, sir.
Yes.
I ask you to put that prop away.
Well, it's not a problem. This is real. And he said I have a problem. I never worked with law enforcement.
It is considered a prop, Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
You're very well aware of the rules, aren't you?
Well,
Aren't you aware of the
he
rules?
brought up the truth. Let's talk about the truth.
Thank you for putting that
Yes.
prop away. And
But when all was said and done, the work was something we could all be proud of.
The back and forth during the state and national elections wasn't the only political drama to unfold. The city of Savannah and Chatham County seeing its fair share of political disagreements.
Who was called a black ghetto B expletive by a sitting councilman on this council.
Even though may have said ghetto B, which I did apologize for, I do not like to be called a child predator, or a child pedophile.
That very public, heated exchange between Alderwoman Keisha Gibson Carter and Alderman Curtis Petit, just one of many turbulent moments between city council members. From arguments over liquor licenses to ethics complaints and finally name-calling by elected officials. Despite the issues, Mayor Van Johnson encouraged the city to look at the successes made this year, including bringing St. Patrick's Day back in full force, the completion of the streetscape project that has been blocking traffic since 2016, and finally, a last-minute deal after 6 months of tense negotiations that would successfully split the local option sales tax between the county and its cities in a manner that all sides found agreeable. A matter of safety and concern saw the mayor push to have the homeless encampment near downtown Savannah cleared out. For decades, dozens of the city's homeless called the area under President Street home. Prior to the clearing of the space, local shelters and nonprofit groups came to the aid of the people considered homeless. They offered addiction recovery help, transitional work training, and even bus tickets for those homeless who were looking for a way to get back to family and friends in other locations. City officials also making moves to help bring down a significant increase in downtown crime. Earlier this summer, Mayor Van Johnson even considering a curfew for areas surrounding the city market section of historic Savannah after 2 shootings there 2 weeks in a row. 2022 also saw 5 different officer-involved shootings, one of which took the life of Saudi Lee. According to the GBI investigation, Lee was lawfully carrying a weapons permit when he was approached by police, but when he drew the handgun, officers chased Lee and one of them shot him. At this time, we are still waiting to see if the district attorney's office will bring charges against that now former SPD officer. Meanwhile, the district attorney faced with one of the toughest cases in the city's history, the disappearance and killing of toddler Quentin Simon. The DA's office handing down a 19-count indictment against the child's mother, accused of beating the child before placing him in a dumpster. Quentin's remains found later and identified by DNA experts with the FBI. Here's News 3's lead investigative reporter Brett Buffington with a look back at this shocking case.
A little boy.
She woke up, her door was open.
Who went missing.
Her 20-month-old baby boy was missing from his pack and play.
A little boy
toddler Quentin Simon was
who seemingly just vanished.
Her
baby's just a baby.
Taken.
Someone came in and took him.
Grandpa called Lilani Simon a liar on day 2 of this search.
I should not have been out of town. You did. You shouldn't have.
Everybody that was in and out of that house during the time surrounding this baby's disappearance, get them to agree to a polygraph and start pinging their phones.
A little boy whose case became a headline.
The search continues this morning in Georgia for a missing toddler.
Our top story tonight, it's been nearly 48 hours.
It's been an entire week.
Is back at the Southwest Chatham County home.
A little boy whose face gave police a purpose.
Yesterday, our team posted this picture of Quentin.
A little boy who deserves justice.
This afternoon, Chatham County Police Department detectives arrested 22-year-old Lilani Simon and charged her with malice murder,
a little boy
concealing the death of another
lost,
person, false reporting, and making false statements.
And then I get a text at 9 o'clock saying, "Have I seen Quentin?"
A little boy named Quentin Simon.
Headline news making it into the fall as a Savannah school became one of many in the state affected by a terrifying hoax. A caller contacting local law enforcement about an active shooter at Savannah High School. The threat prompting a shelter in place for students and a full evacuation and search. Parents arrived at the Park Recreation Center panicked and angry while SWAT teams and K-9 units searched from classroom to classroom. It was 2 hours before officials could confirm the incident was actually a hoax and finding out that the Savannah school was one in 12 different school districts who had received similar threats just within moments of each other. At this time, that investigation is still ongoing. It's been the talk of the area and the nation. Did Alec Murdaugh kill his wife and son? The trial of the disbarred attorney won't start until January, but as WSAV's Andrew Davis tells us, 2022 brought new revelations, court battles, and questions about the killings of Maggie and Paul, and a series of alleged criminal misdeeds by Alec himself.
If he's gonna steal the money that I need to pay my own medical bills to survive financially. He's going to steal from anybody.
Those were the words of a former state trooper and one of the people Alec Murdaugh allegedly stole from back in January. A judge decided the former South Carolina attorney should stay in jail on those financial charges on $7 million bond. In March, Corey Fleming, Murdaugh's best friend, is indicted on 18 charges. A grand jury says Fleming helped Alex funnel millions in settlements from his former clients into his own accounts. In June, Alex paid off his former housekeeper's family. The Satterfield family gets more than $4 million, which a confession of judgment Murdaugh admits he stole from the family's insurance settlement. Gloria Satterfield died after falling at the Murdaugh home back in 2017. Alec Murdaugh's law license gets taken away that same month. He is no longer allowed to practice law in South Carolina.
All the money that Mr. Waters talking about, Alec Murdaugh got all that. I didn't get none of it.
That was Murdaugh's alleged partner, Curtis Smith, who told the judge he would not be a flight risk if he was out on bond. The judge agreed, but just 2 months later, he revoked that bond, and now Smith still locked up on various drug and fraud charges. In July, the biggest bombshell. Alex Murdaugh indicted on 2 murder charges connected to the deaths of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, his wife and son. Cell phone tracking from Paul's phone allegedly puts Alec at the scene that night. Blood spatter evidence could connect him to the gunfire that killed his son. But that evidence continues to be up for debate in a series of court hearings that continued through the end of the year. The only time since the murders we've heard directly from Alec came in Colleton County Court in August at his own bond hearing.
What say you, Richard Alec Murdaugh? Are you guilty or not guilty of the felonies wherein you stand indicted?
Not guilty.
How shall you be tried?
By God and my country.
And WSAV didn't just provide you with coverage locally on the Murdaugh saga. The station and Andrew were also featured prominently in a hit national HBO Max documentary on the case, a case which continues on. The next step, a criminal trial, which is set to start in Colleton County January 23rd. Up next, springtime in the South brings with it unstable and uncertain weather patterns. One storm making history in Bryan County, and despite living near the water, it's not a hurricane. We're looking back next. Welcome back to the WSAV Year in Review. Living close to the coast, you would assume that hurricane season is what made weather headlines, but that's not the case in 2022. A springtime thunderstorm dropped a major tornado into Bryan County the first week of April. Take a look at this video captured by a homeowner in Ellabelle as what is now known to be an EF4 tornado ripped through the area. The storm killing 1 and injuring 8 others. Also in the tornado's path, the Bryan County Courthouse, a tree falling on the building, trapping several employees inside for most of the evening. National Weather Service saying the tornado, the strongest to hit the coastal empire, was on the ground for 13 miles, leaving a path of destruction, adding up to about $60 million worth of damage. Governor Brian Kemp declaring a state of emergency for the area and then voting later in the summer impacted by that tornado as well. Well, the summer remained quiet until September when a high-end hurricane named Ian set its sights directly on the southeastern United States. The large storm devastated parts of Florida and now carries the label of the deadliest storm to hit Florida since 1935. Ian moved up the coast, threatening Georgia and South Carolina from St. Simons to Hilton Head before making landfall near Charleston. The tropics active again just a little more than a month later with a late season storm named Nicole. That storm putting the historic city of St. Augustine under about 3 feet of water, bringing the coastal empire a steady amount of rain before landing near Hutchinson Island. Nicole, the first hurricane to make U.S. landfall this late in the season in 40 years. Up next, from the gridiron to the hard court, sports in Georgia continues to bring home the hardware. We're taking a look back at some of the most memorable sports moments of 2022. But first, if you're heading out to ring in the new year, here's a look at what we can expect from Chief Meteorologist Chris Allred.
Since we're spending New Year's Eve looking back at what happened in 2022, well, here's some of the biggest local storylines in sports from this year. This March, Hilton Head Christian's girls basketball team took home their 4th consecutive state title after beating Orangeburg Prep. Final score in that game, 45-31.
I'll just remember the team chemistry they had this year.
We're all so unique in our own ways and have our own different roles, and we all play it super well. Our team chemistry really bonded throughout the season.
Then on the diamond, we saw 2 teams from the 912 emerge as champions. Metter won back-to-back state titles, while Vidalia won their 3rd state title in program history. The last time they won a state championship before that, 2003.
I don't even know what I'm feeling, to be honest with you. I can't stop crying. I can't stop tearing up. It's special for the program, guys, but it's special for this community. I mean, look at this.
Wrap up things with some high school football. We had 2 champions this year. One of the Lowcountry as the Beaufort Eagles beat Powdersville 41-31. And meanwhile, in the Peach State, Benedictine's game against Cedarville literally came down to the last play when the Cadets came up with a game-winning goal line stop. The final score in that game, 14-13.
It feels great. Very, very, very great. Senior year, 2022, 2023 champions.
For me, this is the greatest victory of all because of how we've overcome so much adversity to get here.
And no, we did not forget about the UGA Bulldogs. We are online right now providing updates about the Peach Bowl. Please visit WSAV.com sports. We'll be right back after this.
Thanks, Corey. Up next, 2022 brought the return of some of our favorite events. Here's a hint. This one is green. Welcome back. Before we leave you tonight, Savannah's St. Patrick's Day celebrations came back in 2022 in full force after a hiatus due to social distancing and business mandates because of COVID-19. And once again, streets in the historic district lined with well-wishers to celebrate what locals call Savannah's biggest holiday. Mayor Van Johnson proclaiming when the parade permit was approved, congratulating all of you, the Coastal Empire and Lowcountry communities for being Savannah strong. Well, that's our time for now. You have about an hour and a half before the big ball drops, saying goodbye to 2022 and hello to 2023. Your WSAV family wishes you a happy and healthy new year, and we want to thank you, our viewers, for inviting us into your home and your lives every day. Good night.